Welcome to the Nate KG podcast, where I talk with jump ropers of all skill levels with different styles, geographical locations, and fitness goals to answer the simple but all-encompassing question, what is jump rope to you? In this episode, I talk with Chris Holmes. You can find him on Instagram at jumpropevideos. He also runs jumpropevideos.com. Chris is a former jump rope world champion and has been involved with the sport for over 30 years. That's a long time. He's performed and taught in 11 different countries and has won several championships at both national and worldwide competitions. Chris is currently a board member of the American Jump Rope Federation. Needless to say, he knows jump rope really well. I'm super pumped for all of you guys to hear this episode because Chris and I really dive into all of the different skills and people and culture and competition structure of competitive jump rope. And I really had a phenomenal time sinking back into my roots and learning more history on the sport. And just so you know, all of the different people and crazy skills and stuff that we talk about in this episode, they're all hyperlinked at natekg.com. And we definitely go into detail on some very specific skills. So yeah, you're not going to want to miss that because it is some mind-blowing stuff. So yeah, that's over at natekg.com. With that being said, please enjoy my conversation with Chris Holmes. Hey Chris, how's it going?
Hey Nate, how are you?
I am great, and I'm really pumped for this for the talk. We're gonna have a really good time. There's so many things I want to ask you. So
awesome.
Pumped to get started. So I think probably a good place to begin is, I guess, the history of competitive jump rope, kind of touching on it in periods of times. Yeah, I know that's a huge topic, but I'm wondering, yeah, we should probably go, kind of where it started and kind of walk us through all of that.
I don't know if I can give you the complete history, but I can kind of give you a little bit of my perspective of the history a little bit. So I started jumping in 1985 when I was in third grade. I started with a jump rope team in Texas that was started by my elementary PE teacher, and he had gone to a PE convention and seen another demo team performing and thought, hey, I've got kids at my school, I can do this. And so he came back and introduced jump rope into his PE classes, and then pulled aside some of the kids that seemed to really enjoy it, and let us try out for the team. And that's kind of where I got started, not really knowing anything about it, and went from there to starting to go to small competitions and workshops around the state, and then moving on to national and international competitions, and eventually kind of traveling all over the world and trying to help promote the sport. So back when I started, back then the organization was the International Rope Skipping Organization, IRSO is what I started in, and then there's been a number of different evolutions of organizations over the years, and fast forward to where we're at now, where we have some really exciting things going on in the sport, where we've got the two big international organizations are in the process of merging right now. The World Jump Rope Federation and the and FISAC, they are both merging right now and forming a new organization called IJRU, the International Jump Rope Union.
That's really exciting.
So yeah, it's really good stuff, and it's a good direction for the sport, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go from here.
So when you started jumping, I'm curious, what was practice like? Because a lot of people do different styles of jump rope practice, right? What was it like on your team?
So our team, when we first started, was, we were just a bunch of elementary school kids. And so it was a lot of us spending time in the gym twice a week for 2 hours at a time, just trying to learn new tricks and new skills. So that was where we spent the bulk of our time, was just working on learning to do freestyle. We did a lot of group choreographed routines to music. My coach was really particularly good at choreographing those. And so that became kind of a staple of early performances and things like that we would do to try to show off what we were doing. So we did a lot of little community shows.
Who was your coach?
Roger Crozier. From the Footnotes in San Antonio. Yeah. So he was one of the early coaches, and such a great role model for so many people, and really a big pioneer in the sport. He was such a great teacher that he was invited to go a lot of places to teach other teams and help spread the sport. And so I kind of got to ride, his coattails a little bit and travel around and get to teach and just share what we had learned. And that's so much of what I think makes jump rope so great as a community is everybody's willingness to share what they've learned.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. It's one of the coolest things, right? Like the workshops and the camps. I remember when I started learning, it was just one of the most exciting things was waking up bright and early on Saturday, rolling into a gym and then jumping with a whole bunch of people and just watching all the, crazy tricks and skills and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so much where the culture of our sport came from with those workshops. And that's where a lot of the innovation happened. I remember very vividly, it wasn't so much necessarily the workshop itself where you learn the tricks. For me, at least, it was the trick circle that formed after lunch before we got back started, and it was all the jumpers that were on staff trying to one up each other, and so just, standing in a circle and showing each other, the craziest trick we could come up with and then trying to do it and trying to one up each other the whole time. So
I'm curious. So is that where the trick names came from? Because you know a lot about where names actually originated from, right?
Yeah. So a lot of the trick names are usually invented by the tricks are named by the people that do them first. Typically, is kind of the culture that's evolved over the years. So when somebody would do a trick for the first time, they kind of got the privilege of naming it, and that's why you see a lot of tricks named like with initials like EB or AS or TJ. Because those are the initials of, in some way, of the people that did them first. So AS, for example, which people will know as a kind of a cross behind the knees. That was named after one of my teammates, Amber Sharp. She was a footnote in San Antonio, and she did that trick in elementary school, and nobody had seen it before, and said, "All right, you get to name it." And so it's the AS.
That is so cool.
And then the TJ is kind of the most iconic one, right? That's the big trick that everybody wants to learn, and it's kind of got a few different meanings, and it kind of depends on who you ask where the name came from. But it was invented by two jumpers that were from the Indiana Thump Jumpers, Tommy Glenn and John Sparks. And they were also from the Thump Jumpers. So depending on who you ask, TJ either stands for Tommy and John or it stands for Thump Jumpers, but it kind of worked on both levels. So that's where it came from. And coincidentally, those are also the same guys that invented the Jami. So John and Tommy.
And the Jami. So let's try to explain this one and see if we can get a visual over audio. So this Jami is swing into a leg over placement, coming out into a cross in one jump, right? So it's a triple under?
That's correct. It's triple, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this is I really want to talk to you about something specific, and that is creating new jump rope tricks, right?
Yeah.
So how frequently are new jump rope tricks created now, today?
All the time. And I feel like sometimes like it's accelerating. I tell people that I've been doing this for 34 years now or so. And I've seen new tricks every single year that I've been doing this. It never stops. It's one of the things that I love the most about this sport is that there's just an infinite amount of variety and creativity that's available to people if you just use your imagination. And, I was very lucky to have like a front row seat, early on to the creation of a lot of the foundational stuff that then people build on, right? So if you go back and look at, things like TJ and Jami, people took that to the next level and started adding additional, unders, to it, and, or additional crosses. Now I see people doing EBTJs and stuff like it's nothing, and it blows my mind. And then just today I posted, a video of a Bailey from Proform doing a backflip with a TJ.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
The fun part about that for me is that I was there when that trick was created.
No way. Who did it?
It was Derek Hirai from Sitka Skippers. And we were, I was in college at the time, and we were on a trip up to Alaska to perform at a bunch of different workshops and camps up there. And we were kind of traveling around for a couple of weeks throughout Alaska. But we had stopped, I think we were in Sitka at the time. and we were just messing around in somebody's front yard. I don't remember whose front yard it was, but they had a trampoline, one of those big trampolines. And so naturally jumpers get together, they start trying to one up each other.
Yep.
And so Derek and I were on the trampoline just trying to do the craziest tricks we could. And Derek was a very talented gymnast, much more so that I wasn't really so much into the flips and things like that. And so he was kind of just destroying me. And eventually I just started like making stuff up and seeing if he could do it.
Yep.
And so I said, you're so hot, do a backflip with a TJ. And of course he does it like first try.
No.
And I was just blown away. I was like, okay, it's over. You're done. You win, you know?
Yeah.
Well, then fast forward like a year later, we're at nationals and we're competing against each other in the finals for single rope freestyle, and he does it on the floor, and the whole place just goes nuts, man. And of course he walks away with the championship. So totally earned. He was such an amazing jumper. But so anytime I see somebody do things like that, now I see people throw in things like backflip AS and
the backflip AS thing needs to that's crazy. The fact
that's
that
so
like
scary.
Yeah, like people like Porter and them are just throwing it like it's nothing. Like that.
Decided that those guys, don't have any concept of death yet, and that's why they're so
real.
good.
Like honestly, and also what's hard to tell too when you're looking at the video is how difficult that skill really is.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah,
I'm wondering because you're saying we're seeing tricks created all the time, but these tricks that are created, they are, from my perspective, very elite level or master level skills. Like, Seth threw an EB TJ frog. So EB TJ landing in a handstand position, which is wild, right? But kind of a lot of the foundational skills that you were talking about, those are combined and put together for these high level skills, right? So there's kind of a difference between combining skills and having a style. Would you say that's correct?
Sure. Yeah. But a great example of something that's evolved kind of since I stopped competing is all the releases and rope manipulations. So when I was competing, when I grew up, it was very much, me and DeMarcus and Derek Epps and Sun Win, and then the guys before me like John Sparks and Chad Vara and those guys were all kind of like power style jumpers. So it was a lot of big jumps, big air, big multiples, a few flips, and that was kind of the core of what we did. A lot of power tricks, right? A lot of frogs, push-ups. Mm-hmm. I was around the guys that invented like the kamikazes and the belch frog and things like that, right? And so I got to learn from all those guys. But then, so a few years after I was kind of out of competition, then people like Mike Fry come along and start doing all these, crazy releases, and the Mick, right? And the Mick didn't exist when I was jumping. Yeah. And so that's been fun for me to try to learn some of those things kind of after the fact. So.
Who did the first Mick? Do you know?
I think it might have been Mike Fry.
Are you serious? Okay, like I know
you should ask. You should ask him. I don't fully know the history of that trick, but I'm pretty sure that it's he's certainly the one that I first saw doing it and perfecting it and really kind of popularizing it. I don't know if he was for sure the first one that did it, but he would know.
I mean, he is absolutely a legend, but like people don't know like how much of a legend Mike really is, like he's incredible. Yeah. Like amazing. Like it's honest. It's crazy for me too, because, one thing I really want to highlight too, as you're talking about these different names of people, is that the competitive jump rope community and the jump rope community in general, honestly, is just really, really tight. Like, everyone. And the fact that like, I have, I know Mike and can send him a text whenever and we're friends. Like that blows my mind, because my 10-year-old self was just sitting on the computer watching videos just like everyone else, Yeah. And they're like, well, it's a different guy? Yeah. And it's a different day now because of social media and everything that allows us to kind of connect in that way. That didn't really exist when I was coming up. So I'm very jealous now of the people like, and it's really like the people like Kamisi and Seth and Porter and Bailey and all the kids coming up now that have access to, number one, a TV studio in their pocket to capture and record all this stuff, because
they've got now on video the first time that they did all these tricks, right? And there's this history. And Nick Woodard was maybe kind of the first one that kind of started to live through that a little bit through, because YouTube had, started to become popular, while he's inventing like the Moneymaker and, Death Wish and things like that, right? And that just didn't exist when I was growing up, right? So I've got old VHS tapes of us.
No way, really?
Yeah,
that would be so
I've got
cool to see
video of like the first subway, right? And that's the one thing that I've got that I'm proud that we have on video, the very first time it was done.
And the Grand Central Station, right? You have that.
Yeah, Grand Central Station's out there as well. Yeah, and it's so funny that came along about 10 years after we did the subway.
10 years after?
Yeah, so I think it was around 10 years later that they did Grand Central Station.
Can you explain what the Grand Central Station is? Because this is a pretty mind-boggling.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So first you have to understand what a subway is, right? So a subway is some number of people jumping in a push-up position, and then you have another jumper going underneath them perpendicular to the way they're facing. And so that jumper goes into kind of a similar push-up position, but goes underneath the people that are doing a push-up and comes up on the other side. And I was part of in double Dutch typically. Yeah. I was part of the first group that did that. And so we did that in somewhere around like 1994 or something like that, maybe. And then I think it was somewhere around, 2004 or something like that, maybe, when, Jeff Moss and Nick and those guys did the Grand Central Station, which is a variation on that where they have, you have to really see it. It's it's so hard to explain, but you've got
how many people do you have in the middle of double Dutch?
I don't even remember how many they have in it, but they have at least two people jumping in a push-up. Then you have somebody jumping on their backs perpendicular to them.
Uh-huh.
And then you have people going underneath, and they have people doing an ultimate subway head on underneath all of that mess.
Is that what they call an ultimate subway?
I think so. Yeah. Where it's, where you're going straight head to head and you go over somebody like that.
Oh my gosh. That is just, I remember when I saw that video for the first time, and I was just sat there floored pressing play again and again and again and again. I'm like, these guys are crazy. My favorite one is there's a video a couple of years back from the Hot Dog USA team. They had a community show for their end of the year. And it's one of the best shot and edited jump rope videos that exists. And they do a Grand Central Station at the end of that, and it's in slow motion. You can hear the ropes hitting the ground. I'll send it to you. It's so good. And we'll definitely link that one up too in the show notes, because that's going to be, we're going to have a lot of videos to link up in the show notes. It's going to be so good. So let's kind of talk about tournament structure, because this one I'm actually curious about too, because I mean, I know about the US tournament structure, but not so much international. What's the differences there? Or like, how are they similar, or how does that play out?
Well, so it's changed over the years. So World Jump Rope has, it's very similar to what you would see at a national competition, at least here in the U.S. You have your single rope freestyles, your pairs freestyles, all the same events. Speed events. So it's very similar. For the World Jump Rope Championships, they had several days of age division championships, and then they take the top competitors from those and they move on to the Grand World Championships. And that's the final day. That's the big showcase where you have the top jumpers in the world competing against each other in a variety of different events. And it's so much fun to watch. And you can go, look on YouTube and find the World Jump Rope Championships from the past several years. And they film the whole thing and put it up there. And they have live commentary from former jumpers that and sometimes current jumpers that are running back and forth between competing on the floor and, and announcing in the booth. So it's so much fun to watch.
So that tournament is open. So at the national level, it's open for competitors to sign up and come compete.
Currently, that's going to be changing though with IJRU in 2020. you will need to qualify through your national governing body in order to come to the tournament.
Okay.
And so, and for the U.S., that's through the American Jump Rope Federation, which I'm currently a board member of. And so, yeah, people will have to qualify through our national tournament.
And this is different than it used to be, correct? So like if we go back
Yes.
to the documentary Jump, remember that was a while ago? It used to be regional, national, world, right? There's a regional competition divided up between obviously neighboring states, and then nationals, and then worlds if you did well at nationals. Is that right?
Yeah, that used to be the way it is. In fact, when I competed the first year that I won a world championship, it was kind of that way. They selected a team. It really was kind of at the discretion of the national organizations to decide who they fielded from their country, and they didn't have enough all male teams to round out a full roster, and so they put me together with a few other jumpers that had also competed at the national tournament, but didn't have a full complement of a full all male team. And so we were assembled to kind of go compete at the championships that summer, and it ended up winning the whole thing. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's really similar to other national sport organizations, right? A lot like wrestling, where wrestling has many different national organizations with their own, tournaments and different way of structuring things. And it sounds like, well, it obviously is kind of the same thing in our sport, right?
Right. And it's getting back to that, right? So it's IJRU will be moving that direction again. And so I'm excited with where that's headed. And the people that are involved there have really done a fantastic job of moving the needle on international participation and getting recognition by the Global Alliance for International Sports Federations is a big step forward for our sport, and that happened just last year. So it's really incredible what they've been able to pull off.
How many other countries have competitive jump rope?
There's more all the time. I think
that's the
previous
answer that I
world
like to hear.
Yeah. So I think at last year's World Championships, I think we had something like 30 or 32 different countries represented.
Okay.
I may not have that completely accurate, but I think that's about right. And they've got more on the way. So.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So in other countries, though, it's a lot different than in the U.S. So for instance,
it varies by country for sure. Yeah.
I think in China. And definitely correct me if I'm wrong here, but China and I think India as well, jump rope is actually an established sport, part of the school system.
Yeah, in some places, in some countries it is, yeah. And they also have a lot of government backing as their official sports federations. And we're working on that in the U.S. That's one of the big stumbling blocks we've had in the past is that we weren't recognized by the USOC and things like that. And so we're trying to do the things that we need to do in order to make that happen. And that's kind of where we're headed.
So there's the big question from a lot of jumpers that are, new or, a little experienced. When is jump rope going to be in the Olympics? I kind of say that with a little bit of a smile because everyone seems to ask that at some point, right?
Sure. Yeah. And, hopefully sooner than later. It's something that we're definitely working towards. And just the big step forward that we took was this merger of World Jump Rope and IJRU. World Jump Rope and FISAC to form IJRU. That, I don't think people appreciate how big of a deal that is and how important that is for our sport. The Global Alliance for International Sports Federations, doesn't want to, pick between organizations. And so anytime that there's two, they tell them to go work it out. And so the fact that those two organizations were able to, come together and set aside their differences and realize that for the greater good of the sport, this is the path forward. It's really huge. And so it's really important that everybody kind of get on board and support that effort, because that is the path forward to getting into the Olympics. And so, that's something that is of utmost importance, is making sure that IJRU is positioned correctly in the international community, and everybody understands that is our international governing body for the sport going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can feel, I mean, at least I can feel the difference in the community in terms of unifying jumpers together.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's pretty wild, especially, and I'm sure you share this too. Like when I started jumping, it was jump rope very much was you were either a competitive jumper doing all these, skills and crazy different things, or you were just occasionally using it as conditioning. There was there was no middle ground to my understanding when I started. And now it's amazing how much of a blend there is all over the place, of different styles.
Well, it's such a versatile tool, right? And it's one of the things that I love about it is that it's something that anybody can learn, but you can spend a lifetime trying to master it. And there's just an infinite number of challenges. And as many years as I've been doing this, I've learned a lot and done a lot of things, but there's always something new to learn. And that's one of the things that is really appealing to me. I didn't really come at it from a fitness angle. Fitness is just kind of a byproduct of it for me, right? I'm interested in more of the sport angle and it's so much fun to learn a new trick and to do something, to get into that flow state where you're just doing trick, and nothing beats that. And that's kind of why I like to do it. Right. And, the competitions, I love competing and everything like that, but it was always just about trying to get to the next level of, we weren't so much worried about how we finished, in the competition. We were worried about whether or not we hit our routine clean.
Yeah.
and whether
Seriously.
or not we're really just trying to impress each other, and, that's what we cared about more than whether or not we won.
Can you talk more about that flow state?
Yeah. So, man, the flow state, that's so
there's
good.
this moment of euphoria when you nail a trick or you nail a sequence
There's something about, that mind body connection of, just kind of your rope just becomes an extension of you and you're just flowing. And I'll tell you what's even better than the flow state with single rope is the flow state with double Dutch. If you can get a group of people together on the same page, in sync, going trick, hand off, all these, rope manipulations and releases and turn involvement. There's nothing else like it. That was my absolute favorite thing to do was just to have a really, really intricate double Dutch routine.
Yeah, it's something else when you match. It's also when you're practicing for that moment, it can be completely the opposite. But that's what makes it so great.
It takes a lot of work to get there, but when you get there, man, it's so good.
Yeah, how are the routines judged? And we have a couple different styles, right? There's freestyle, but there's also speed. We kind of alluded to it before. There's speed and power.
Yeah, so let's start with speed and power. So speed is basically running in place with your rope as fast as you can, and the judges count every time that your right foot hits the ground, and they do that because typically jumpers are going so fast that they can't possibly count both feet.
Yeah,
and so they've learned and been trained to count the right foot every time it hits the ground, and so you go for some period of time. So there's 30-second speed. There's some countries have minute speeds. There's 3-minute speed events, which is
brutal.
Cool. It's brutal.
That is not fun for me.
Did you watch the World Championships this past year?
No, but I heard. Yeah, no, I heard someone hit a 3 per second pace the whole time.
6 per second.
Right. Yeah, because you double it.
Yeah.
That's oh my god.
6 jumps per second. Yeah. So they were. It was Stuart Isaacs and a jumper from Korea were both jumping in 3-minute male speed, and we knew that both of them were likely to break 500 in 3 minutes, which is 1,000 jumps. It's insane. Yeah. But the really exciting thing was that the Korean jumper was going for the world record, which is 550.
Whoa!
Yeah, and he gets
Dude.
to like 549 and steps on the rope.
No, oh my gosh, I just
And
had like a visceral reaction when you said that because
yes,
when you're in
it's
competition, you know that's like, oh, that's
and he looks up at the scoreboard and then tries to get going again and can't get it started again before the buzzer.
no. Did he
And
trip on the way up?
he just collapses on the floor, and he's like, and everybody, the announcers, everybody just goes, "Oh!"
So he
And
needed
just he
two
needed
more counts to score.
he needed one more right foot on the ground to tie it, and one more to break it.
That's all he needed. Oh my
And
gosh.
he was right there. He was on pace to do it completely. And it was just, for me, it was a classic sports drama moment. And I put
Yeah.
that up there with any top 10 kind of like sports, center kind of play of the day sort of thing. Because, I think Lee Reisig was on the call, and he's just urging these guys forward. And you can hear it in his voice that as they're getting closer, he's going,
Yeah.
come on, come on, come on, push it, push it, push it,
Yep.
And then he steps on the rope and everybody just screams.
It's so similar to like track or running where you
Yes.
have a fraction of a second that you're trying to get,
Makes all
ahead
the
of,
difference.
or yeah, it makes all the difference. And
Mhm.
it's that slight, like if you start off the blocks just a little bit wrong, and it's the same kind of thing where you trip at the last second. It's like, oh
And I'm just,
man.
and speed has gotten so much faster than when I was jumping. So when I was jumping, the top scores were maybe in the low 80s for 30 seconds.
No way. Are you
So
serious? Wow.
yeah, so I was doing, I was
For
not
single rope
fast
or
at
double
speed
dutch?
for single rope, single
Okay.
rope. So for single rope speed, I did really good to break into the mid 70s, right? And because I was just slow. um, but the other thing is the technology's changed over the years too, right? So when I was jumping, we didn't have wire ropes yet until I was much
Oh
older.
wow. Wow.
So wire ropes didn't come along until I was already in college. Um, so so we were using like the old school licorice ropes, and trying to crank, so we were doing 75 with licorice ropes, right?
Wow. That is
Well,
tough.
so now kids are breaking, hundreds left and right, in 30 seconds, which just blows my mind.
Which is 200 jumps.
200 jumps in 30 seconds.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, that is insane. Okay, so that's speed, and there's
That's speed.
speed for single rope and double dutch, but we've also
Correct.
got freestyle. Can you kind of give a lay of the land of what different freestyle events there are?
Yeah, so the best way to think about freestyle is it's kind of akin to like a floor exercise in gymnastics, right? So you have a space marked off that's the freestyle area, and the jumper goes out there, and they have a minute and 15 seconds to impress the judges with their best tricks. And so the judges are looking for a different variety of tricks. So they're looking for different, crosses, multiples, changes in direction, changes in speed, rope manipulations, rope releases. They're looking for all those things. They're looking for, change of direction, moving around the floor. They don't want you just standing in one place. And they're scoring the tricks as you do them. So with the new scoring system that we have in the American Jump Rope Federation and in the World Jump Rope and possibly soon in IJRU, is they are every time you do a trick, they're using a tablet to score you and give you a score for each trick that you do based on the difficulty of the trick that you do. So that's kind of the content portion of it. And then there's a presentation portion. So you have judges that are looking for, are you presenting yourself well? Are you standing upright, or are you landing like sloppily, in a crouch? And so they're looking for, does it clean? Is it look clean? Does it flow? Does it look nice?
Yeah, and that's a lot of the reason why, like, for the general fitness jumpers, when they see competitors, a lot of times you see comments like, "Oh wow, like that's very clean," or you're smiling so much, and that's exactly why, right?
Yeah, you're trained to do it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you drill it over and over and over again. And people don't understand, they kind of see the cleaned up things on Instagram a lot of people doing these tricks. But what they don't see are the literally hundreds of attempts that went into that before you start to get it. Even just something like the mick, right? I had to learn the mick, much later. And it took me, a solid year of working on it before I started to feel comfortable with catching it, and it still didn't look clean. And now I've been doing it for a few years, and I can get it very clean. But now I'm on to like the step through mix, right? And trying to catch those. And I can do it really good to one side, but not so good to the other yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm still working on it.
Yeah. And when competitors are practicing these routines, I think of this a lot in terms of multiples, but it applies to really any sequence. They're doing that exact sequence again and again and again. Like it's not
over and over and over. Yeah.
It's called freestyle. And it kind of is, but it's kind of not. It's like
it's not improvised. Chosen. Yeah, it's a predetermined routine. If you go out there and try to improvise, you're going to lose.
Yeah. Unless
I've tried to do it.
Unless you're really, really good. You know, some jumpers show up a week before with their team and they just throw something together and it works. So
the thing that I always did, and I got criticized for it a little bit, but I basically did the same routine every year.
Yeah.
For several years in a row, because once you perfected it, it was mine, and I had done the same routine so much that when we had that team that was assembled for the World Championships, that they already knew my routine. So when we did the 4-person freestyle, it was basically my routine.
No way.
Because the guys already knew how to do it because they had watched it so many times.
That's funny. Oh my gosh! Wow, dude, that's wild. So you said you've traveled a lot. Where have you gone?
So I was very fortunate that, from high school and college, I got to travel all over the world to perform and teach and compete. So I got to go obviously all over the United States, Canada, Mexico, Spain, Belgium, Holland, South Korea, Germany, France, England, Sweden, all over.
This is all for jump rope.
All for jump rope.
Man, it's so wild.
It's incredible, and I consider myself very blessed because I got to have these amazing experiences at a very young age. By the time I was 18, I had traveled more places than most people will get to go in a lifetime, and all because of a rope. All because of a rope. Yep. One of the things I want to tell you is just how much I appreciate what you're doing in the jump rope community right now.
Thank you.
So. Yeah, I think it's so cool to me to see there's been this fitness community that's really popped up online in the last few years, especially with, people, CrossFit kind of starting to introduce double unders into their workouts. And now I think they're even moving into triples a little bit and kind of dipping their toes into that. But, there's a lot of, bad information out there and stuff about how to jump rope. And so to me, it's refreshing to see somebody in kind of the fitness community that actually comes from, the sport side of it, that understands jump rope in the same way that I do as a sport, and giving correct advice about how to jump and proper length of your rope and all that stuff. So I think you're doing a really good job of that and starting to bridge that gap. And I think that's one of the things we have to do a better job of as a sport, is starting to reach out to some of those folks and start to, funnel them into the sport side of things. Because there's a lot of people doing really amazing things in the jump rope community right now. And I'd love to see some of them, come to, some of our events and start to participate in it as a sport, because some of them are certainly right there and capable of doing it,
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have an event every March at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio, that's run by AMJRF, where we have a competition there for jump rope.
And it's open to all ages and everything?
Yes. Yeah, it is. And so it's been, mostly youth market oriented so far, but we need to expand it into the adult market as well, right? And capture some of what's going on in that CrossFit community and bring those folks over and show them that there's more to this sport than just double unders, endless double unders.
Yeah. And there's also there's structured competitions, right? And
absolutely.
There's no reason that people in, outside of the competitive community can't come in and be part of it, That's right. Yeah. Also, there's no reason why competitors can't go out and be part of the fitness community,
Exactly.
and kind of shift up their workout programs too, to kind of test out new things.
Yep. That's really good point. And you see people like Nick Woodard, right? Who's
Yes.
comes from the competitive side, is now, a personal trainer and working, with fitness folks and stuff like that. So, and then yourself too, doing what you do. So I'm excited to see, people that have come up through the ranks, starting to share what they know with the broader fitness community.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so next question for you. Big old question. What is jump rope for you?
Jump rope is a sport.
Jump rope is a sport. Yep.
It's simple, man. It's it's something that like I said, anybody can learn, but you can spend a lifetime trying to master it. There's so many tricks available, and I see people, really starting to get good and smooth on the line. A lot of the fitness jumpers coming in now and jumping, but it's fun to see them to start to explore, some of the tricks that we've been working on for years, and see them start to get them. It's pretty exciting.
And some of them kind of rising up to our level too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. You look at like Jimmy or Sonny and those guys. They're really starting to learn. Chris Walker. Those guys are coming along rapidly, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, man. Well, honestly, that's a pretty good spot, I think, to kind of wrap up. This has been such an awesome chat, man. I really appreciate you being on.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been great.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good.